Hello chess friends and welcome to Yozarov's chess channel and welcome to the round 10 of the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. So we get again a draw and the result after 10 rounds is now 5 to 5. No one has lost a game. We had 10 draws and of course we want to see some winning games, but Yasser Servan here on the stream yesterday, he said a very important thing. So we of course want to see these dynamic games with rook sacrifices, queen sacrifices, bishop sacrifices, pawn threatening, mate threatening, and stuff like that. And we of course admire these games by Bobby Fischer, we admire the games by Mikhail Tal and stuff like that. But the truth is that these games by Bobby Fischer and maybe against this in this match game for the world title against Boris Spassky, well, these games were full of blunders, and that was the problem now these days. Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, they don't make blunders, they don't make mistakes even. They simply play this maybe simple inaccuracies, but they're not playing mistakes or blunders. So that's the problem. That's why we don't see this common maybe sacrifices. We don't see this pawn breakthroughs and this, well, the most beautiful things in chess we don't see here. But that's all because these two guys are playing perfectly, and Caruana is really the top challenger, and Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, they're of course they're like maybe Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi in football. So they are the two best players, and the other players, well, they're not. So these guys, whoever wins this world championship, it's gonna be probably deserved, because they're playing really this perfection. And let's see now yesterday's game. Yesterday's game was full of dynamic ideas, but Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, although they're also the best attackers, they're also the best defenders in chess. So you have to keep that in mind while watching their games. And I also wanted to talk about these computer evaluations. Well, these computer evaluations, if you see them sometimes, well, they're basically BS, because I watched yesterday this game, and in one particular moment, after maybe Carlsen made a slightly inaccuracy, well, the evaluation jumped from 0.0 to 1.0 for Caruana. But what does that mean? It means that Caruana is plus one pawn. So if you have a rook ending with 3 pawns against a rook and 2 pawns, it doesn't mean you're gonna win the game if you have this computer evaluation of 1 plus 0 for yourself. So I read many of these comments, and they say many of these followers, they write now, Magnus is gonna lose this game because he's 1 point behind in this computer evaluation. That's not true. That simply means that he's a pawn down, and of course he can play for a draw. So as I said, I don't like to watch these games through these computer evaluations. I like to watch them through this human perspective, from the human point of view of a chess game. So yesterday's game I really liked, because Magnus Carlsen was playing really dynamically. He prepared better as in round 8, so he had really a nice attack, which Caruana of course defended, because he's one of the best defenders in the chess history. I think this incredible how deep they see these lines. And let's see now this very nice Lasker variations in the 10th round. So we had here e4, c5, knight on f3, knight on c6, and here Caruana chose again this d4 line, which is a more direct line, and I really loved this when he played it in the 8th round, also because this Rossolimo attack that he prepared in the first rounds, well, I think it's a more positional line instead of this d4, which is a direct attack, and this d4 line always lead into dynamic games, I think. And we had here c takes d4, knight takes on d4, knight on f6, and knight on c3. Now Carlsen plays this Lasker variation with e5, We have knight on b5, and now d6. You see, we have always these problems with this d6 pawn, and it's always present. If you lose this d6 pawn as black, you will probably lose the game. So now Caruana plays knight on d5, knight takes on d5, and we have here now e takes d5 and knight on b8. So let's see now the position a little bit. It's obvious, and it's always this situation when you have this pawn chain. This pawn chain always shows us, pardon me, this direction where you're gonna try your attack. So of course you see we have this little pawn chain here on d6, e5, and of course we are gonna play on the king side with moves this f5. Let's see now white's position. He has here the advanced pawn on the d file, which is of course on the queen side, and of course we are going to coordinate our attack on the queen side. So we are trying maybe moves c4, b4, and try to maybe break through here on c5. And if you could get rid of this d6 pawn, as I said, black is gonna probably lose the game. So that's black's main problem in the game, this d6 pawn. And Caruana will also create many weaknesses here on b6 and c7 in the continuation. So you have to be careful on these dark squares around the queen. So Caruana played immediately for the attack. Here with a4, we have bishop on e7, bishop on e2, preparing to castling both of them. So we have castling, and now knight on d7 by Carlsen. And now Caruana chose here to play the move b4, which is maybe a preparation to play c4, and as I said, and then try maybe even a pawn sacrifice with c5. But then you have to move maybe d6. So of course the problem for Caruana is that he has no supporters here of the b4, and here Carlsen finds a really nice defensive system against this early attack, this early queenside attack. He plays the move a6. We have knight on a3, and now he plays a5, getting rid of this b4 pawn. So white has to choose now. If he goes b5, then you can jump in with your knight on c5 and fix the position with the pawn on b6, and you have solved your problems on the queen side. So that's the idea here with this a5, and then you can really easily play these moves, f5, maybe even after that g5, f4, with this common sort of a King's Indian attack, because you have fixed your position on the queen side. So that's why Caruana took simply out here this a5, rook takes on a5, and at least he gets here this tempo on the rook on a8 we have, and now bishop on e3, and we are aiming of course this very weak b6 square, but it's also protected by the knight. And here Carlsen plays of course the attack, f5. Now he gets his fun on the king side. Now we have a5 and f4, bishop on b6, and of course it's not good here to take with the knight on b6, because you get knight on b6, then you have to move your rook, and if we take out here this bishop, which had a really nice diagonal here, that would be a problem. After rook on c8, then you have bishop on g4, and you can fix the bishop here on this very nice square on e6, although we have opposite colored bishop situation, but this bishop of whites would be simply better. This bishop would be blocked out by its own pawns, so this would be a completely winning game for white. So that's why after bishop on b6 we had here queen to e8 by Carlsen, and of course now his preparation is to play queen on g6. He wants to creating these threats with e4 and then f3, and with this direct attack on the king in this early stage of the game. So that's why here Caruana played a very nice it's also an attacking, but it's also a defensive move. Now this rook has double function here. It has, of course, here this attacking idea, maybe also to play rook on b3, try maybe attack this b7 pawn, and similar ideas. But it has a really nice defensive function because it covers here really this third rank, and which is of course white's problem, because if this pawn gets advanced, then black will create his attack on the third rank, of course with the help of the rook, maybe the bishop and the knight. So again, I'm pointing you out, this rook knight on b6 is really not so good, again because of this knight takes on b6, and this wouldn't be good for black. So we have here, of course, queen on g6, and now bishop on c7 by Caruana. He wants to play, as I said, on this weakness of this d6 pawn. If we lose this d6 pawn, we will probably lose the game, because then after that we get this problem with the e5 pawn, and then after that we get the problem with this f4 pawn. So now e4, and we have king on h1 by Caruana. If he plays something like rook on e1, it's already too dangerous here, because f3, you will be forced to play the move bishop on f1, and then you get b5. If a takes b6, you see we have rook on a3, knight takes on a3, and after f takes is g2, we have bishop takes on g2, but then the knight will jump into the game, and this would be really a nasty attack here. So after king on h1, getting out of this g file, because the queen has here the discovered attack on the king. Now Carlsen finds a very nice idea, and he founds again a very nice defensive system, because he will solve the problems on the queen side. And if Caruana wouldn't have reacted as he reacted, of course he reacted with the best move, he will be crushed probably very easily. So he played the move now b5, which really is challenging. Now you want to solve your problems on the queen side, and of course if we trade these two pawns, we don't have any problems then. On the queen side, we have here a backward pawn by white, and we don't have to worry about the queen side anymore. We can just focus ourselves on the attack on the king side. So if now we have a takes b6, that's now it becomes very dynamic. Now then you get f3, of course with this immediately attack and threat of checkmate. So you'll be forced here to take g takes f3, and now we have rook takes on a3, knight has to take, and then you get knight on e5. So if you play here f takes e4, it's already losing, because you get bishop on h3, so attacking the rook. If the rook comes here on g1, then you get queen to e4. You'll be forced here to play f3, and then you get rook on f3. So you see, this was really a deep line by Magnus Carlsen. Of course Caruana sensed it very well. He played the accurate move. I'll show you the continuation, of course. So if now the bishop takes, you have simply knight on f3, and if the rook attacks, then you have a very discovered attack on maybe here with knight on e1. So this is a very nice idea by Carlsen, and here after b5 and after this idea, knight on e4, if you play maybe the move rook on g1, then you get this queen to h6, which is now again the threat. Again, if you take f takes e4, then you get rook takes on f2, and you will be forced again to put the rook here in between, because we have here this immediate threat on checkmate. Then you get rook takes on g2, king takes on g2, and then you have queen on g6. You will be forced to play with your king, but then after that you can take this e4, and with this simple idea to play bishop on h4, and with the coordination of this bishop and the knight, white will be probably even checkmated. So that's why in this position, white would be forced to play the move queen to c1 to challenge really the queen. But of course black wouldn't be then interested to trade the queens in this attacking formation, and of course now this f takes e4 idea is not good, because we can simply take the bishop. So white would be forced to play queen on e3, but it leads into something crazy now, because you then get knight on f3. If bishop takes on f3, then you get rook on f3, and here if the queen takes, we will have again this idea rook on f2, pardon me, again with this simple mating threat. You will have to put your rook on g2, and you will get then a queen on d1, and this is game over, because you have there's no way for you to defend anymore. So in order to prevent it, you will be then forced to play here. Of course we have this immediately checkmate threat. You will be forced to play rook on g1, but then you get bishop on h3. You see now black's pieces would have come with an attack, and then after rook on g3 we get bishop on g4. Very, very nasty stuff, which Caruana had to calculate, of course. And if you bring the rook again on g2, then you get this stunner, bishop on g5. You will be forced to take. Then you have rook on e8, again attacking the queen. If now white takes the bishop, then you get this one, rook on e2. If you, of course, take the queen, then you get rook on e1 checkmate, because if you put the rook, you simply take. And in this position, if now white tries here the queen on c8, then you get rook on e8 again, and here you can do maybe b7, but black can do now this in-between move, this bishop on d8. Now if the bishop takes, you get again the same idea. So white would be forced to play the move bishop on a5. So then you get this one, queen on h6, which is now again threatening here queen on c1 with the checkmate. So you will be forced to play here the move queen on g4. If then of course queen on c1 follows, and if you put the rook in between, then we have knight takes, and if you promote the queen, then we have this check, king on g2, and this would lead into a checkmate, because here this would be the line, and this would be, of course, losing for white. So in order maybe to prevent it, white would be forced here to play maybe, pardon me, after this one, white would be forced here to play the move bishop on d2, and if queen takes on d2, then white can promote, but then you have this one, knight on h3. If queen takes on h3, then you get queen to d4 again, the same idea, and after f3 you have queen on d1, and this would be really a losing game. This would also lead into checkmate. So that's why white would be forced. This is really crazy stuff that they've calculated. As I really analyzed this game, this was something else. So white would be forced to play maybe the move here, and then you get rook takes on e6, then queen takes on d8. I don't know if they all if the both of them calculated all of that, but this is really crazy stuff. So queen to d8 would come, and then you will have to go with your king here on f7. So we have d takes e6, but then you get this one, king on g6, and well, white can try maybe another check, but you can escape with your king, and there's no way to prevent here black to take maybe on f2 and try to checkmate. So you can do this one, but this is immediately checkmate on d5. So if you try to escape with your king here with g2, then you get knight on f4, king on f3, and then you have knight on e6 with an attack on the queen. And if you attack the king, then you get king on f6, and there are no checks available for white, because the knight is a good protector against the queen. I hope you know that the knight is covering these two squares, and this would be of course a winning position for black. So nasty stuff in move 21 already. Here after b5, this was one of the best ideas of Magnus Carlsen. He found this very nice defensive system here with b5, so that's why Caruana played here knight on b6, and here after knight on b6, bishop on b6. So you see Carlsen solved his problems here on the queen side. He has to basically only worry about here this b5 pawn, but he has still a flexible position with this e4 and f4 pawn, so he can create an attack, although the position is equal. But of course white has to take care of these two annoying pawns on the fourth rank with this very nice bishop, and with this one and this rook on f8, black can really create this very nasty attacking idea. So we had here queen on g5 by Carlsen. So now if bishop takes on b5, then you get rook on f6, which can come then on h6 and create again mating threats here on h2. So if you play bishop on c6, then you get f3. If g takes f3, then you get rook on h6, and if you take this, then you get queen on h4, which leads to immediate checkmate, because if you play h3, because we can take here simply with the bishop on h3. So you will be forced basically to play here the move bishop on e3, but then you get rook takes on h2, king takes, and here we have a perpetual check, and this would lead into a draw. So if instead of here bishop on c6, you play the move f3, pardon me, after if you play bishop on b5 and you play now the move f3, then you get this simple idea of e3, again cutting out this rook from the defense here. And if you play now bishop on c6, then you get again rook on h6. If you take the rook, this would lead into checkmate, because you have this queen to g3 idea. Well, and then of course again in this King's Indian style, bishop on h3 sacrifice. So this would be again a checkmate. So here Carlsen prepared really this very nice attacking ideas, and Caruana didn't fall for that. It's really a nice coordinated attack, so that's why he found probably the best defensive move, and he played the move g3. So of course now Carlsen played b4. He wants at least to get a tempo on the rook, and Caruana played rook on b3. Now we have bishop on h3, rook on g1, and now f3. Of course, bishop on f1, bishop takes on f1, and now queen takes on f1. And we are basically now in sort of a middle game here, but in a stage which can lead into a fast endgame. And now of course Carlsen took here this d5, and Caruana took out this b4 pawn. So now Carlsen played queen to e6. What Carlsen now is trying to do is play the move d5, and maybe after that somehow, if he manages to do that, the d4 and maybe e3 idea to get this e and f pawn connected. And if you connect the pawns on the third rank, this would be really a deadly attack for white. So, but he has this dark square bishop, which is covering all, of course, this progress of the pawns. And now Caruana plays rook on b5, bishop on d8. We are trying to trade the bishops. Bishop takes on b6, a takes b6, and now of course rook on b8. And if we see the position now, white has this advantage. He has this supported pass pawn on the b file, which is really annoying. But black has really now possibilities to connect these pawns. We don't have anymore this dark square bishop, which can cover this d4 e3 idea. So here we have queen to e3. Caruana is trying to do the blockade here on the dark squares, and we have queen on c4, rook on b2, of course protecting the c2 pawn, and now rook on b7. Again, we are also playing here the blockade on this b6 pawn. So now rook on d1, and we had here this position in which Carlsen, I think, had like 2 minutes, and he had to decide what to do. So he played here very nice move, queen on e2. If the queen takes, then we have again this very annoying move, f takes e2. You will be forced, and then you get rook on f2, which can also maybe lead into doubling the rooks on the f file, and then play rook on f1. So of course Caruana didn't play that. He played here rook on e1 after a trade of queens. Now Carlsen played this very important move, which is really fixing these pawns here, and he creates this very nice pawn chain in the center. So now h4, of course, creating some breathing space for the king, and the king can maybe go here through h3, or maybe here through g3 into the game. Rook on c8 by Carlsen, rook on a3, and now the king has to also play, of course, by Caruana. This rook on a7 is so far, of course, it's always present, this idea, but you can meet it with rook from c to b8. So this is really not a problem. So we have king on h2, king on e6, and now a very important move, g4, which competes with these two pawns. So we can always create a blockade system here against these two, and we are liberating this g3 square for our king. We are not allowing black to go with this king on f4. If black king comes here on f4, this will be a losing game for white. So that's why we have rook on c6, and now rook on a6, of course defending this very important b6 pawn. King on e5, and of course king on g3, of course preventing this f4. So h6 now by Carlsen, h5, and this is now really a drawish position. Well, black can try maybe here this g5 move, but then white can simply take. This is really not a problem. These two rooks will always be deflected, and they will always have to defend this outpost of this b6 pawn. So it's really hard for black here to play with his rooks, and also it's also hard for white to play with his rooks. So he has also this c2 weakness, and it's of course a draw. So here Carlsen made quite a mistake. He played here this king on d4, and this is the problem. Of course you want to get more centralized with your king, but he could now Caruana finds this very nice move, rook on b5, and the threat is now to play rook from a to b5, rook from a to a5, pardon me, and then simply out to take this d5 pawn. And I've talked about in this early stage of this video of this pawn change. So if you get this d5 pawn, you will probably get this e4 pawn, and then after that you will get also this f3 pawn. But Carlsen realized his mistake, so that's why he played rook on d6. He wants to get this d5 pawn protected, and now we have rook on a4, king on e5, rook on b4, of course protecting, and of course now the threat is to play the move c4. So that's why Carlsen gets out of the pin, and we have c4 anyway. D takes c4, we have rook takes on c4, rook takes on b6, rook takes e4, and now we have king on f7, but now Caruana plays this in between check, rook on f5, rook on f6, after a trade of rooks, king on f3, king on f7, and now king on g3, and this is the position in which both of the players agreed to a draw. And of course this is this evaluation that I've talked about also in the beginning of this video. Well, the evaluations maybe here 1+ for white, but it's draw. It's this rook endings with this 3-on-2 situation, so this leads always into a draw. So I hope you like this game. I really like this game because I think Carlsen got out very nice in the opening, and he created very nice attacking ideas, but Caruana, you see, he finds this best defensive moves, and in this endgame he's also pawn up, but unfortunately for him he couldn't realize it. And if we would have maybe here a supported pass pawn on the a file, that would be a completely different situation. Then Caruana would have a winning position, but this 3-on-2 situation on the same side, it's really a draw. So meanwhile, you can also watch all of my previous Magnus Carlsen versus Fabiano Caruana games, and you can also subscribe to my channel. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.